What's up, YouTube? Hi, it's Juju here. So, about 3 hours after I released the video about cards I'm picking on Mortal Judgment, they released the patch notes. That's like, I don't know if that's like, no, yeah, that's perfect timing for sure. Yeah, I have the worst luck with timing, so that's life. I think that's okay. But anyways, we're gonna go over these patch notes. Luckily, the cards that I bought into weren't affected that much, to be honest. I knew to stay away from a Nubian hype, and I knew to stay away from like Alistrina-ish cards, even though I recommended it in the video. I honestly didn't think they were going to touch Alistrina, if I were to be completely real, because it's such a good card. I thought the design was actually not as bad as people thought. The immaterialize makes sense because if they don't want OTK to be powerful, yeah, you need to nerf the immaterialize, but dang, Alistrina was such a good card. Good stats, good mana cost, even if you use the Empower effect, it's at 7 mana, so you basically have to wait 9 turns to play the dang thing if you're trying to get that Empower effect, but it is what it is. I'm not too hurt by it or anything like that, just because I knew about the risk going in. When we are talking about new sets, especially when it comes to Gods Unchained, everything is fair game, right? Everything is fair game. Things are getting balanced still, so you always have to approach it in a sense where, okay, when you buy into a card, you have to think best case scenario, worst case scenario, but you should also lean on the side of risk mitigation. Okay, so if I buy into this card, what's the worst thing that can happen? Is that worth the risk, right? So that's why I stayed away from a Nubian and all those cards. I didn't think they'd hit Alistrina, but it is what it is. I could see why. It sucks how they hit Immaterialize though, because I was really looking forward to playing some OTK Magic day one. With that being said, let's go into the blog. Mortal Judgment release patch notes. With Mortal Judgment nearly upon us and us coming to the conclusion of the PTR, I want to take a step back and let you know where we're at as a team. Okay, this sentence right here is really cool. One thing I want to give a shout out to about the dev team is they're really trying hard to communicate their results and their findings with the player base, and that makes me bullish because when I look at big companies like Blizzard or anything like that, they usually try not to. Riot does a good job with this though. If I had to think Riot, how they approach TFT and how they approach balancing, they're really good with communicating with their player base. So this is the Gods Unchained team is no exception to this, which I really appreciate. So thank you, devs. Initially, we had planned to skip the PTR due to timelines, but we decided to have one due to player requests, and we're very glad we did. We decided the aim for this test was to check the stability of our servers and our assumptions for game balance. As far as that is concerned, we considered it a success. We managed to spot plenty of fixed opportunities ahead of time. So thank you, mortals. Okay, cool. Reviewing the feedback, I'm not going to read through all of this. You can pause the screen and do that for yourself. They're fixing bugs, all this good stuff. Okay. On the balance process, we've heard concerns about players around balance, emergence of overly low-cost decks such as Casino Deception and the Strength of Light. Keeping a close eye on this, and we have made some balance changes that will hopefully assist with the overall meta, as well as power creep more generally. We've listed those below, and they will be in play in time for launch on April 19th. Okay, cool. A lot of players correctly identified some of the issues that we've been keeping an eye on. The new Death and Deception archetypes had their cost assumptions based on the value of a 1-mana creature, which was an error picked up by the balance team very quickly. Okay, cool. Seeing how the meta evolves to counterbalance is generally a solid strategy that gives us good clarity, but after seeing the community quickly hone in on the power of the decks, it became pretty clear that this would be too disruptive to leave in. With this knowledge, we decided to make a suite of stat changes to the Mortal Judgment cards, as well as some changes that the community and balance team have been requesting, mostly around the prevalence of light decks. I'm okay with this. I think like it's good that they're like addressing like the power level of light, but I'm also kind of sad that they didn't give the new deception and death decks like time to be in the real server, right? Because a PTR server is a vacuum, or it isn't a vacuum. It's also like not ideal conditions because one, when people are playing PTR, especially with a new expansion, all of the lists are not optimized. Two, players are playing new decks, right? So they're not playing, I don't know, they're not playing aggro light. They're not playing anything like that. So it's hard to really like judge the power level of those decks, especially when you don't test it out in a primarily competitive environment. Like, for example, a better in my personal opinion, and this you guys can agree or disagree with this, but in my personal opinion, if they really want a good level of power or a good judgment of power level, they should like see how it goes in either a weekend ranked or maybe like a PTR tournament, something like that. Because I mean, for me personally, and this goes for other players too, like sometimes you just want to fuck around during PTR, right? Sometimes you just want to make like some weird deck because you have access to all the cards, you are playing with a new set, you're trying out new things. And sometimes when you run into like, yeah, decks that are easily solved, like, and easily playable, yeah, they're going to be those decks that are faster to solve and faster to play are automatically going to be better than any of the decks that are either a little more complex in strategy or just take some time to be optimized, right? And I feel like the Anubian strategy and the aggro deception strategy, they were really easy to solve because the strategy was pretty laid out for them. You summon your 1-drops, and then you attack face, and then of course like there are little nuances in aggro that need to happen. And I'm not saying that aggro is easy to play. That's not the case at all. I'm saying the deck building process when it comes to aggro decks is a lot easier and a lot more straightforward because the strategy is very set in stone, right? And the way you structure aggro decks, it's like, you know, you have your set minions for each curve, mana cost, right? Limited removal, but it has to be like cheap removal, and yeah, your win condition is that. But for a tempo deck, for example, like there's a fine balance between like, okay, how much removal do I need? How much cycle do I need? Do I need more mana minions at this point? Right? Or more like 3-cost minions at this point in the curve, right? Or a control deck, for example. One of the reasons why control decks are so hard to optimize early on in a metagame is because control decks need to find a like healthy balance of removal, cycle, and threats, right? Because you're playing limited threats, you're basically using some cycle depending on the metagame because if it's a control metagame, you want to use less cycle. But a majority of the time, your removal options are meta dependent when you're playing a control deck. And yeah, that's just my spiel on things. Like, of course, aggro is going to be easier to solve and easier to play and easier to build. So the power level during like a short period of time, like a PTR, is going to be aggro for sure, unless there's a completely broken card, like I don't know, unless there's a completely broken card that enables control decks to work, right? So yeah, that's my spiel. I wish they, instead of basing their assumptions off of PTR, I wish they had given it at least a weekend ranked or some sort of environment where there are actual stakes on the line, because there are no stakes in PTR. I can just straight up play something. I don't know. I was playing Dragon Tooth War, and I don't know if that was good because I actually think that deck is kind of good. But it's like not a deck that people would think of, you know? I'm trying to like do some weird shit. So yeah, that's just my gripe. I understand the devs like point of view, like nerfing aggro preemptively or nerfing like problematic cards preemptively. That's okay in my opinion, but it might be better to use like either a longer time frame for PTR or like set up an environment in PTR where there's competitive stakes, because that's where you're going to get the best decks. That's where you're going to get the most effort into finding the best decks. And from there, you'll have a clear idea of what the metagame will be. All right. End rant. That's just all I have to say about that. But I support the dev team no matter what. I just hope they can learn from this process. And devs, if you guys are watching this video, please take this into consideration, because yeah, 3 days on a PTR server from Monday to Wednesday is not going to be a good sample size to base all of these balance processes on. Also, I understand that the player base is very vocal about certain cards, but you also have to kind of consider that they're case studies, right? These are just, anecdotal. This is just anecdotal evidence. If you want to make a change about the game, it should be quant analysis first, and then anecdotal evidence to support the quant analysis. Cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on from that. I'm going to move on because I can talk about this topic a lot. So let's go on into the balance changes. Non-mortal judgment changes. Mace of Calling. Durability decrease. Change durability from 3 to 2. Yeah, I can see that. This is pretty underwhelming now as a 2-mana 2/2 that gives a 2/2 in your hand, right? You might as well play the Cudgel of Atonement or anything like that. So, okay. Next up, Wrong Path. I'm really sad about this one. Mana cost increase. Change mana cost from 3 to 4. Yeah, I thought it was good at 3. Wrong Path is a really strong removal option for light. 4 mana makes it seem too expensive now. The reason why I'm saying this is because 3 mana is a very important point in a curve for light, specifically because all of their power cards are at 4 mana and 2 mana and 1 mana, right? You don't really have a lot of options besides Bright Mage and... Is it just Bright Mage? I mean, Frumentary Researcher if you're running the Mystic variant, but yeah, I think it's just Bright Mage at the 3 mana slot. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. But yeah, other than that, you're running Wrong Path and Light's Levy, and then you're trying to use the Wrong Path to set up the Highborn Knight, the CERN, or any of the 4 drops that you have. So that's an interesting call. I think it definitely hurts the deck because the 3 mana slot for removal was pretty ideal. And yeah, Wrong Path is, I like the card. It's annoying to play against, but I actually think it's pretty dope design in my opinion. So now it's just kind of meh. Shield Bearer, strength decrease, change strength from 1 to 0. Okay, so it's back to pre-nerf Shield Bearer, and now it's just a light minion. Porphyron, Dread Cyclops, stats decrease, change stats from 5/5 to 5/4. I actually kind of agree with this. Porphyron was very strong. So I can see that. 4 health brings it, or makes it vulnerable to stuff like Canopy Barrage, which is okay. Viking War Maiden, strength decrease, change stats from 3/2 to 2/2. Yeah, that makes sense because it was a 2 mana. It's 2 mana? Let's see. I think it was a 2 mana 3/2 that summoned a 1/1 Viking. Yeah, 2 mana 3/2. So it's a 2 mana 4/3 essentially, and that could be something dangerous. Battle Bard, strength decrease, change stats from 2/2 to 1/2. Okay, so they nerfed a little bit of Vikings too. After that, we have Big Bony Bastard, change strength from 5 to 4. Okay. Tempt Fate, Empower 1, add a Failures Heirloom. Okay. I already knew that Anubians were going to get nerfed, so I'm okay with that. Dahlia the Night Gardener, mana cost increased from 3 to 4. I think that's okay. Because now Dagon becomes the ideal 3-cost character, right? It's still Dagon burrowing, or Ominous Burrow. It could be something else too. Like you have Stag, I felt like a lot of the options in nature, specifically for the 3 mana cost spot, were plenty. Like there are too many options. You have the bear, you have the stag, you have Dagon, you have the burrow. There are just a lot of options to play at that 3 mana cost slot. So moving it to 4 actually doesn't hurt the deck. It actually gives it something to play at the 4 cost slot other than a Selene or Selena's Bow. Or the Overgrown Rhino, the 5 mana or 4 mana 5/5. So this is something to keep an eye on for sure, but I don't think it hurts nature a lot. Garrus, Defender of Tartus. Health reduced. Changed health from 7 to 6. Okay. I thought this card was okay. You wait 7 turns to play it. It's a frontline when you summon a creature with 2 or less strength, draw a card. So maybe it has some implications, like when you play a card shark, for example. That's a creature with 2 or less strength that summons another creature with 2 or less strength. So for 1 mana, you draw 1 card or 2 cards. So, I mean, I could see the nerf. Proud Protector, change mana cost from 4 to 5. Okay, this is the Echo. This creature swaps strength with another creature. Yeah, that makes sense. That's not bad. Return to Tomb Guard, change health from 4 to 3. This is the, okay. Summon a random 1 mana Nubian from your void. Okay. Immaterialize. This one hurts OTK Magic, definitely. Now you change the mana cost from 2 to 3. It's not that powerful anymore. It just costs more. But if, hear me out, if you can get a materialize on, or if you can get a discount on it via either, I don't know, you can Alistrina, Helpful Aether Fox, Warp Engineer even, you can still go infinite with Archimea depending on the deck. So that's an interesting thing to consider. Also, I mean, Immaterialize on a Dralamar is still pretty good. Lupine Wayfarer, stats reduce, change stats from 5/5 to 4/4. Aw, that makes it sad. It's a 4/4 with Tempt Fate now, but I mean, I'm not running Lupine in mid-range nature. I think if I'm running mid-range nature, I'd probably just stick with the Minotaur Veil Warden. Cool. Next up, we have Shadow Step Backstabber. Strength reduced, change strength from 1 to 0. 1 to 0, okay. Steal 1 strength from the strongest enemy creature. Okay. I mean, that makes sense. It becomes a 1 mana 2/1 that reduces the strength of an enemy creature. So yeah, that could definitely be a thing. Arms Dealer, change stats from 4/4 to 3/3. 4/4 to 3/3. Echo, hidden for 1 turn. At the start of your turn, expend 1 mana. If you do, give creatures. Okay. Yeah, they really nerfed Aggro Deception. I'm sorry. Line in the Sand. Okay. This card, I'm not too, like, angry that they nerfed it, because 2 mana Sleep Effect is pretty nutty. It's definitely one of the better cards in the game. Or was one of the better cards in the game. Territorial Dominion. Okay, your strongest creature attacks your opponent's strongest creature. If your creature survives, fully heal it. Mana cost increase. Okay. Aspect Juggler. I'm sad about this one. I was really excited to try the new Aggro Deception, but I mean, it's definitely nerfed now. Appeal to Mercy, Corrupting Influence, Rollicking Lyricist, Aspect Juggler. Yeah, these are all cards that are not good anymore. I mean, they could be good, but they're definitely not worth the mana cost. I'm not playing Corrupting Influence for 4. I'm playing it for 3, but not for 4. Appeal to Mercy, 3 might be okay. 3 might be okay for Appeal to Mercy. I think they should have just kept it to 2. If they want to push an archetype, they need to give it like 1 or 2 powerful cards, right? Nithos, this card is ass. Unless you can find a way to protect it. But because it's a 2 mana card now, right? Because it's a 2 mana card now, it's a little harder to justify this. I don't know. 2 health is bad, right? 2 health is pretty bad. You can... I'm trying to think. How would I make this card work? I mean, it would be nice to... Okay, this is 2 mana. Give it Protected or Order via Ghost Form or Ancient Text. And then you can maybe play the ability and maybe get some tempo. So that's a thing for sure. In my opinion, I just wish they, I don't know, made this card a little stronger. It's still kind of weak to me. 20-sided Mace. Yep. Change the cost from 3 to 4. Now it's a 4 mana 2/2. I don't know. They just made the aggro deck, the curve, a lot weirder. You can still go like Switch Duelist or Shadow of Lethanon into like an Aspect Juggler into a Rollicking Lyricist or Appeal to Mercy, Corrupting Influence, but it's just so much weaker when you have to play it a turn later, you know? It's not good. 20-sided Mace. Okay, Wretched Vanguard. Yeah. Frontlines, Afterlife, steal 1 health from your opponents. We already knew that Anubians were going to get nerfed, so that's okay. Change the text of Pharaoh's Heirloom to say 1/1 Wretched Vanguard. Oh, okay, so they changed the Pharaoh's Heirloom. Honestly, I'm not playing this card. Like, if I'm playing an Anubian deck, 1 mana, I'm not playing this card. There's no need to play this card. It's a frontline with 1/1. I'd rather play the Skeleton. The one that, whenever this card is summoned, you get to summon another Skeleton Anubian. That one. So at least when you revive it, you always revive another card to, like, either sack with your Necromancer or Priestess of Takat or whatever, and your Skull Scepter. That's so much damage. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not running this card raw in Pharaoh's Heirloom decks. Cool. Next up, we have Alistrina, Prime Refractor. Mana cost increased. Increased mana cost from 4 to 5. Yeah, there's nothing to say here. I think... Alright, listen. So, if they're going to make this 5 mana, at least make this a 2/5. That's all I have to say, because 4 mana, 1/5 was pretty good stat line. Reduce the mana cost of cards in your hand by 1. Of course, this card is going to be broken, but... I mean, give us at least some kind of compensation. Like, you're not really playing this card for the strength anyways. You're playing this for the actual effect. The later you have to play this card, though, makes it insanely weaker. Because think about it, like you play this on turn 5, yeah, you discount your hand, but it's turn 5. And then if you want to empower your deck, for example, or if you want to use the empower effect, you have to wait an additional 3 turns. 2 turns if you held your bag of tricks, but yeah, honestly. So, I don't know. It's either they make this a 5 mana. If they make this a 5 mana, which they already are, just make the empower effect 1 mana less. So it'd be a 5 mana roar effect and then a 7 mana empower effect. I think that would be better here. Next up, we have Hand of Abyss. Oh yeah, this card was pretty good. 2 mana, 1/2. Or it was a 2 mana, now it's a 3 mana. Yeah, I could see that. I'm also just... This was good out of 2 mana. So the thing about aggro decks is that... the thing about aggro decks is you want to play your strongest things like right away. So the faster you can play them, the better. And those benefits or those like advantages over time compound, because turn 1 advantage carries over to turn 2, turn 2 advantage carries over to turn 3, so on and so forth, right? So until your opponent can either equalize the advantage by playing a board clear or maybe creating like a tempo swing by playing like a insanely statted minion, the player that controls board first will always like carry that advantage over to the next turn, if that makes sense. So the advantages compound over time. And the reason why I'm going over this topic is because with the changes in the aggro deception and the Anubians, they're increasing all of these mana costs, which in turn are making them play their games later. And if they have to play their strategies later, their strategy or their aggressive strategy doesn't compound over time, or their advantage doesn't compound as much over time. And quite frankly, I don't think for an aggressive deck, you need to have a really strong turn 1, and because of what they're doing to these cards, these decks probably won't have a very strong turn 1, or they'll have like a medium, they'll have a decent turn 1, but they won't have like a insane turn 1. Like an insane turn 1 would be playing an aspect juggler, or maybe bag of tricking your corrupting influence or appeal to mercy. That's an insane turn 1 to me, but I digress. Nerfing the aggro strategies is okay. Reach into the black. Okay, so reach into the black. Summon 3 random. Oh yeah, this card was pretty strong, especially at the 2 mana slot. Yeah, at the 2 mana slot, this is insanely strong. So good job, devs. That was a good one. Land of the Dead. Okay, so going over, as much as I want to say Land of the Dead needs to be a 6 cost, I actually think it's okay at a 5 drop. And this is why. So with Reach into the Black, you only have to, there's a hidden penalty when it comes to playing like high-ish mana cost cards, and that hidden penalty is time. The time you have to wait to play the card. You have to wait 7 turns now to play this card. 6 if you save your Bag of Tricks, but let's be real. If you're playing an aggro deck, you should be using your Bag of Tricks as soon as you can to just compound the advantage over time. But because I have to wait 7 turns to play this board fill, like it's an okay card. It's decent, but if it were, what am I trying to say here? But it's not as broken as this, Reach into the Black. Because with Reach into the Black, I just have to play it on turn 2 if I have three 1-mana Nubians in my Void, right? And playing a card like this sooner, right, is better than waiting for this later, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's a concept in game design that is often overlooked when it comes to like determining cost basis, but when you want to think of the surface level value of a card, you have to think of, the value that is they're summoning, but you also have to think of the amount of time you have to wait to play that card, right? That's why a lot of the 9 mana cards that I feel are very underwhelming because I'm not down to wait 13 turns to play that card. You know what I mean? Or 15? I think it's 15. 16. It's 16. I'm not down to wait 16 turns to play a 9 mana card, because if I have to wait 16 turns to play a card, it better be like a game-winning thing, right? Same thing goes with this. Like, if I'm waiting 7 turns to play this, I don't know if it's actually going to be worth, especially in a game that goes as fast. I might as well just wait the extra 2 turns and play the Quorum, because I think the Quorum might be a better finisher now. Of course, you can run into like the scenario where you just summon like 6 of the Reavers, or maybe a Priestess of Takat and a Necromancer, and then like any of your Reavers maybe, or double Priestess of Takat into 4 Reavers. That's pretty busted. So I can actually see that. I'm not going to spend too much time on this card because it just got nerfed, and I think it's a good nerf. But yeah, hopefully y'all got that spiel about the opportunity cost of having to wait for a card, because it's actually a concept that has kind of been overlooked when judging power levels of cards. But yeah, anyways, Bone Roller, mana cost changed from 4 to 5. Yeah, that makes sense. Bone Roller was a really good card. It basically enabled a ton of strategies. Like, you don't even have to play this card on, like, in a Nubian deck, for example. You play this card in Zombie Death, or I don't know, you play this card on Zombie Death, or like any of the imp decks, Swarm imp decks, or whatever you want to call it. It does suck that it changed from 4 to 5 though, because Death did need something to play on turn 4. Like, you already have your finishers, or what's that card? The 5 mana 3/5 that buffs all your nethers. Like, you already have a card like that. I think 4 would have allowed death to, at least zombie death to get better. Cool. Dead King's Touched. Mana cost increased. Change mana cost from 4 to 5. That makes sense. It was a very efficient form of removal in a class that already has efficient removal. Aggressive Superior. Mana cost increased. Change mana cost from 1 to 2. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. 6 mana to buff your field full of minions into 5/5s is pretty insane, in my opinion. So having to wait until turn 8 or 9 to play the Empower effect is okay. Now this is going to be a true finisher, I guess. But it's a flexible form of finisher, right? Because you can play this on turn 1 like raw, and that's okay. Even though it's kind of understated for a 2 mana minion. Oh yeah, that's right. It turned into a 2 mana minion. See, that's the thing. Like, why change the mana cost? Why not change the Empower effect? You know what I mean? Like, why not change the power cost for the empower cost, right? Because a 1 mana 2/2 is good. All right, it's decent. It's not good because it doesn't have the keyword, and usually 1 mana 2/2s have a keyword. But like, if they want to like increase the mana cost, like, what makes the card broken is the Empower effect. So increase the Empower effect and keep this at a 1/1. Armory Heist. This one is, I actually don't know this one. What's this one? Give 2 strength to each of your creatures. Give -2 strength to each enemy creature. Yeah, okay. That's fine. Change mana cost from 5 to 6. So now it's not, you wait 7 turns to play this card, and it's not, I don't know. I think 5 mana is a great like price point for finisher cards. So anything over that, I'm kind of like meh about. Waiting 7 turns to finish off my opponent might be good, but I feel like Deception has better closing options, right? I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's still a finisher regardless. Kaya, Conduit of the Gods. Okay, so this card is pretty good. 6 mana, 5/2. At the end of your turn, deal damage equal to your spent mana gems split randomly among enemy characters. So I think this card is good. What makes me like super skeptical about it was its stat line. Yeah, it's a 5 mana 5 or 6 mana 5/3. What made me kind of like skeptical about the card was the health, right? Because the 3 health means that it's really easy to deal with, especially at this point in the game where you and your opponent have 6 mana, right? So that's where I kind of like drew the line on this card. By no means it's a bad card, but now that it got nerfed to 2 mana or to 2 health, it makes it even more like worse, right? Because yeah, the roar effect is good, or at the end of your turn effect, it's good, right? But then it needs to survive damage for the next turn in order for it to gain more value. And because it's at 2 health, it makes it really easy to deal with. I think it actually puts it more towards like the balanced line, whatever the balanced line is. But yeah, it's a great card. Shout outs to, I want to give a shout out because there was someone who commented on my video and they mentioned this card. So let me go ahead and go to that real quick. Yeah, shout out to Nahin Hassan. There we go. That took a while. But yeah, really appreciate you pointing out Kaya. So thanks for that. Sick. Known issues, all this good stuff. That's pretty much it for what we're doing. They're fixing bugs, which is great. In terms of everything else, closing thoughts. It sucks how they like nerf some of the decks before like even playing them or even giving them like a real shot, because I don't think PTR is actually like a it's going to be an indicator, but I don't think it's a true indicator because PTR is just an environment where there's like not that much stakes, right? So yeah, I went over that in the video. In terms of what changes in my picks? Of course, all the nerf cards are kind of changed, except for probably Alistrina and what else? Alistrina and Dahlia. But honestly, I think it's okay. In terms of the cards that I bought into, yeah, that list is still standing. I still stand by it. Maybe the Shade Walker got affected though, in terms of aggro deception being good, but you never know. We'll see what happens. Anyways, y'all, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. And happy Mortal Judgment release. Super excited. If you like the video and you want to see more of the content, please like the video, subscribe, and yeah, leave some comments in the comment section below. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day. Bye.